this video, you'll learn how to multiply fractions. The process for multiplying fractions is quite straightforward. So the first part is to multiply the numerators, which are your top numbers. The second part is to multiply the denominators, or your bottom numbers. And lastly, you need to simplify your fraction if possible. And that might mean putting it into a more simplified version of a fraction, or it might actually mean making it into a mixed number. And that'll be either up to you or the question to decide what you need to do for that. Okay, let's do it with this example down here. We've got 1/4 times 2/3. We're going to start by multiplying the numerators, so going straight across the top and doing 1 times 2 to get 2, and then multiplying the denominators 4 times 3 to get 12. Okay, so that's step 1 and step 2 done. Now we need to look and see if we can simplify. And straight away you should notice that both of these numbers are even. That is a dead giveaway that you can divide the top number by 2, but also divide the bottom number by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, 12 divided by 2 is 6. And this is your final simplified version of that answer. If you don't feel confident simplifying the fraction at the end, or you're not quite sure exactly how it works, I've got another video on simplifying fractions. That seemed pretty straightforward, but what happens if maybe one of your numbers is not a fraction, but instead it's a whole number? And that's exactly what we have here. We have 3 times 2/5. Now, if we think back to our definition of multiplication, multiplication is just a form of repeated addition. So when we say 3 times 2/5, we could actually be saying what are 3 lots of 2/5, which is really saying what is 2/5 plus 2/5 plus 2/5. So we're going to have a look at that as a diagram. Here is just a circle. It could represent a pizza or a pie or anything really. And what we've done is we've divided it up into 5 parts, which is what our numerator here says, 5 equal parts. And this is 2 of those parts. So 2 out of the 5 parts, or 2/5. So that's one lot of 2/5. There's another lot of 2/5, and there's another lot of 2/5. So this down the bottom is really 2/5 plus 2/5 plus 2/5, which is the same thing as what we have written up here in full. So we can go through and just count these. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've actually got 6/5. So the question is, what can we do with these numbers over here in order to work out that it must be 6/5 as our answer? All you need to do when you see a whole number is turn it into a fraction, because you already know how to multiply 2 fractions. We've just gone through that. So how do we write 3 as a fraction? I mean, it doesn't look like a fraction, it looks like a whole number. Any whole number can be written as that number over 1. So we can take 3 and we can write it as 3 divided by 1. Think about it, what is 3 divided by 1? This is really asking how many 1s are there in 3, which is just 3. So whether we write it as 3 or 3/1, it all means exactly the same thing mathematically. So here we've got 3, which is really now 3/1, times 2/5. So we can just go straight across. 3 times 2 gives us 6, and 1 times 5 gives us 5. Exactly like what we did just before. Alright, let's get into some practice. So 4 times 5 is simply 20. 3 times 2 is 6. And look at this, we've got 2 even numbers, so let's straight away divide top and bottom by 2. So 20 divided by 2 is 10. 6 divided by 2 is 3. We can go even further if we want to, and we can write it as a mixed number. So we ask ourselves, how many 3's are there in 10? Well, we know 3 3's is 9, so we know that there are 3 lots of 3 in there. And what's left over? We've got that 1/3 left over at the end. Now we've got 7/4 times 6. Now here's our whole number. Let's turn it straight away into a fraction, and now we can go 7 times 6 is 42, and 4 times 1 is 4. Both of these are even, so let's halve 42 and let's halve 4, And once you get to here, we can't go any further because this is 2, it's a prime number. It can only be divided by 1 or itself, which is 2, and we can't divide the top number by 2 because it's an odd number. So you could leave it here as an improper fraction, or we can write it as a mixed number. So we can't go 21 divided by 2, but we can go 20 divided by 2 is 10. And then what was that extra part that we had on there? It was that leftover one part that was a half, so 10 and a half. Next up, 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 4 is 12. Now here you might see that they are actually both divisible by 6, so we can do divide by 6, divide by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1, 12 divided by 6 is 2. Now you don't necessarily have to go straight from this step over to here. You could equally have done this. So divide top and bottom by 2 to get 3 over 6. And then top and bottom both divided by 3 would give us 1 over 2. So either way you can get there in the end. Always be careful when simplifying to make sure that you divide both the top and the bottom number by whatever the number is that you've chosen to divide by. So long as you always do that same thing to the top and the bottom, you'll always be ending up with your equivalent fraction at the end. Okay, now it's your turn to have a go. What I'd like you to do is pause the video here and have a go, and once you've had a good go at these questions, resume the video and check if your answers match with mine. If they don't, have a look over your working out, compare it to my working out, and if you're still not sure, you can ask me in class. So pause the video now and have a go. Sometimes when you multiply fractions, you can get some very big numbers. So here you would need to do 8 times 15, which would actually give you 120. In some cases, that would result in quite a lot of simplification that you would need to do at the end of the problem. However, there's a strategy that is usually referred to as cancelling, or cancelling common factors, that can be used as you're going through the question to make your resulting answer already a more simplified version of itself. So here we've got the number 8, and we're going to think about what are the factors of 8, and that means what are the numbers we can multiply to get 8. So we could do 1 times 8, or we could do 2 times 4. We could also do then 4 times 2 and 8 times 1, but really we've listed every factor here, 1, 8, 2 and 4. Let's do the same thing for 15. 15 is 1 times 15, and it's also 3 times 5. Notice when we look at the other numbers that are involved down here, we actually have a number, the number 5 here. And notice we have the number 5 in the list of factors for 15. That's going to be very helpful. And so is this. 2 is listed in this set of factors here, and 2 is located down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some cancelling of factors, but we're going to do them in the shape of a bow tie. Now think of a bow tie. A bow tie goes diagonally this way and diagonally that way. And it also goes up and down at the edges like this. So this is a bit of a helpful hint as to where you can cancel factors. So we can cancel factors diagonally here. So we can cancel the factor 2 in this direction. And what that means is we go, how many 2's here? Well, there's only 1 2. And how many 2's are there in 8? Well, there are 4. We can also go diagonally this way. We can go, how many 5's in 5? There's 1. How many 5's are there in 15? There's 3. So we've done the 2 diagonals of our bow tie. We could also have looked up and down, but notice there's no common factor of 8 and 5. There was no common factor of 15 and 2. Same thing with 4 and 1, 3 and 1. We can't actually cancel any more common factors. So really what we now have is 4 over 1 times 3 over 1, which is actually really only 4 times 3, and we know 4 times 3 is 12. So let me show you what work we got around doing. We would have had to have gone 8 times 15, which is 120, and even that in itself might not have been one of your straightforward times tables to do. So we would have had to have done that. We would have had to have gone 5 times 2 is 10. And then we would have looked to see if we could simplify this so they both have the factor of 10, so we can divide both by 10. 120 divided by 10 is 12. 10 divided by 10 is 1, which gives us 12. So it can be a bit more work. Other examples would be a lot less straightforward than this one. Dividing by 10 is generally an easy thing to do, but you know, what if you'd gotten 15 or 25 or 27 as a denominator here? Would have been much more difficult. So let's practice that. Let's practice simplifying by cancelling common factors and seeing how it makes multiplication of fractions quite a bit easier. Oh, one last thing before we move on. See this bow tie? See how there's no horizontal lines going across here? It's really important that you never cancel factors going across like this. You cannot do that. It is mathematically not correct to cancel factors in either of these two directions. Okay, don't do that. But you're more than welcome to cancel factors this way, this way, this way, and this way, just like a bow tie. Okay, let's look in our bow tie directions. So we've got 4 and 2. They both have factors of 2. So there's 1 lot of 2 here and 2 lots of 2 here. What about this way? So we've got 1 lot of 7 here and 3 lots of 7 here. So that becomes 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. So that is just 6. So see how that's a lot more work than going, okay, 4 times 21. 4 times 21, 20, 40, 60, 80. So that is 84. 7 times 2. 7 times 2 is 14. And then how would we see that there are actually 6 lots of 14s up here? So we went around all of that work to go straight to this answer here. Alright, this next one, 3/10 times 25. Remember 25 is 25 over 1. So can we cancel this direction? No. Can we cancel up and down? No. No. But here, have a look. Both of these have the factor of 5. So how many 5s are in 10? There are 2. How many 5s in 25? There are 5. So 3 times 5 is 15. 2 times 1 is 2. And you could here go even further and go 15 divided by 2 is going to give you 7 full lots of 2 and 1 left over, so 7.5. Next up we have 2/3 times 9/40. So looking in our bow tie directions, we've got a common factor of 2 here. So there's 1 lot of 2 or 20 lots of 2 and 1 lot of 3 and 3 lots of 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 20 is 20. This is in simplest form because 3 is a prime number and we can't divide 20 by 3, so we can't make that even more simple. Alright, 4 times 6 over 5. Remember, this is 4 over 1. So let's look up and down, no. Up and down, no. 4 and 5, do we have a common factor? No. 1 and 6, do we have a common factor? No. So I've put this one in here as a little trick to show you sometimes we can't simplify common factors. Sometimes we do just need to go 4 times 6 is 24. 1 times 5 is 5. Right, and then that is going to be 4 lots of 5 with 4 parts left over, 4/5. Okay, so sometimes we can't cancel, but look at all these examples where we could. So it's a good idea to keep your eye open for any common factors. Remember, you're looking in the diagonals and you're looking vertically up and down to see if there are any common factors to cancel. Okay, now it's your turn to have a go. So again, I want you to pause the video, have a go, then resume the video and check your working out. So pause the video now. So how did you go? Hopefully from this video you've learnt how to multiply fractions, how to multiply a fraction by a whole number by first turning the whole number into a fraction, and you've also learnt this mathematical tool of cancelling as you go through to make the work a little bit easier on yourself. If you've got any questions, ask me in class or send me a message. Thanks for watching.